In this video, you will see a lone Leopard surgical ambush on Russian turtle tanks, a Canadian APC's impossible escape from an FPV swarm, a French crew's harrowing story of survival under grad fire, and the most personal story we've ever told, a father's promise to his fallen son, fulfilled in the cockpit of an Su-25. 4 stories, 1 frontline. Your debrief starts now. This story begins with an assault near POKROVSK.
One of the main rules for a tanker is hit fast and get out fast.
Russian tankers, not trusting their DIY grill cages, were praying to the angels to help them break through to a key height. But little did they know that a Ukrainian Leopard 2 was already waiting for them on that hilltop, fully loaded with tungsten core darts that can punch through just about anything. But first, the Russian convoy had to squeeze through this bottleneck in a half-destroyed village, and by the laws of the genre, Ukrainian drones were waiting for them. The first tank hit blocks the road for the others. The bottleneck works. The Russians are forced to turn back. At first glance, nothing unusual. Drones have long been the kings of the battlefield. You've probably gotten used to footage like this, but not everything is what it seems. Look closely at the first tank that stopped, the one with the mine plow. It didn't burn after the first hit. It kept standing against wave after wave. Ukrainian FPVs bounce off it like arrows off Achilles' shield. And those that do explode, they're clearly not getting through the armor. According to Russians, this tank took no fewer than 60 hits. Even if that's an exaggeration, the footage alone is insane. And here's the twist. After the battle, the tank remained in the gray zone for a while. Ukrainians never managed to torch it. Later, the Russians pulled it back, and it turned out the tank hadn't stopped because of the drones at all, but because its transmission broke. Look at this machine. Let's call it Achilles' shield. It walked through hell and came back nearly untouched. The improvised armor actually worked. Watch till the end to see how Ukrainians make this beast fall. That Russian command decided to slap the same protection onto more tanks and repeat the mad assault. But before we show you that fight, let's take a closer look at what makes Achilles' shield so special. Hit the like button, because your like is our weapon against YouTube's brutal algorithms. Thanks. First thing that jumps out are the chain dreadlocks. Steel ropes dangling like the fringe of a gypsy wagon. Here's how they work against drones. The FPV's shaped charge warhead detonates far from the actual armor, leaving the tank unharmed. Second, the heavy cage armor wrapped all around. Behind it, you see the core structure, a metal box. And what's stuffed inside that box? Yep, wooden logs. On top, an extra welded steel grill cage. Add to that a beefy 11-channel EW system, thermal imagers, and dual cameras, front and rear. But the craziest part is hidden inside Achilles' shield. You can only get in with a special ladder. Inside, there's even a compartment for infantry, lined with thick metal. And here's the wildest thing. The commander's station is in there too. For safety, the commander sits outside the main tank hull, like some IT guy in a coffee shop, directing the crew via cameras and intercom. Unreal. Well, looks like all the tanks are ready for the assault. Crews are loading ammunition. Now it's just a matter of attaching the mine plow to the lead tank, because every meter of the gray zone has been mined several times by both sides. And now, let's go to the battlefield. Alongside the 4 tanks carrying Achilles' shield rolled in more vehicles with the usual grill cages strapped on top. And behind them, more armored friends. The whole convoy looks like it's headed to a picnic. You can already start feeling sorry for the Russian infantry clinging to their armor. Such parade-style convoys are rare these days, but just the sight of Achilles' shield gave everyone the feeling. This time, we'll break through for sure. Spoiler, no, they will not. Out in the open gray zone, the convoy's speed slowed. because the lead tank with the mine plow couldn't move faster than 10 kilometers per hour. No, you're not looking at the pyramids of Egypt on the horizon. That's Donbass, baby. Its history is a bit like America's Wild West. Here, the Knights of the Wild Steppe, Ukrainian Cossacks, always ruled. Because of the convoy's snail pace and the long distance to Ukrainian lines, the defenders had time to prepare their welcome. A Leopard 2 rolled into position. Let's call him Harvester of Sorrow. Look, the camo makes it almost invisible. And of course, the Russians had no clue they were already walking into the harvest. The Harvester of Sorrow starts carving up the convoy with German precision. The Russians had no idea what was hitting them. Does Achilles' shield save them this time? As you can see, all those improvised add-ons are useless against DM-23A PFSDS rounds. Every shot from Leopard's 120mm cannon lands like a scythe strike. If it doesn't outright kill a tank, it tears all the extra junk clean off. Without Achilles' shield, those tanks are naked in the steppe. And naked, they can be killed by a simple FPV drone. Uncovering these frontline stories takes a massive effort. Support our mission by subscribing to the channel. The Russian formation falls apart. Some try to turn back home, but no, those who veer off the path hit mines. Others fire back, anywhere, just to fire. But it feels like nobody's walking away from today's meat grinder. The accuracy of German tanks is legendary. And honestly, Leopard itself has already become a legend of this war. You'll find several videos on our channel showing how it fights. There's even a video comparing the combat capabilities of the German tank with the American Abrams under real war conditions. So, let's not get sidetracked now. At some point though, hope flickers for the Russians. The Leopard falls silent. Maybe its ammo racks are empty? After all, a standard Leopard 2A4 carries up to 42 rounds. Nobody knows for sure. But Ukrainians had a reliable backup. Artillery was already locked on Russian coordinates. And FPV drones are circling above. So the harvest goes on. It doesn't stop even when the shooting dies down. They say the scariest sound in this war isn't explosions or artillery fire. It's silence. Because silence here is always deceptive. In that silence, you start to hear a thin, nervous buzzing, like a mosquito near your ear. Yeah, that's drones. Writing the new soundtrack of modern war. Their sound cuts your nerves like a razor. Doesn't matter if it's flying at you or not, because that buzz means game over. Attempts to shoot one down with small arms rarely work.
Нас разбили. Я выхожу один, Дюс остался там. Все пацаны, это я один, кто вышел. Это посадка. Нас просто... Дюса не могу вытащить.
Even the infantrymen who survived the first strikes and tried to hide in a sparse forest are now doomed to be buried without names. Do they stand a chance of surviving if they make it to nightfall? Maybe, but they can't go back because their commander's order is clear. Push toward POKROVSK, hole up inside the buildings of the suburban village of Shevchenko, and wait for the next wave of assault troops.
раненый. Шериф, хочу выбраться, но темно уже. Ничего не дает.
That's Russian tactics in action. Stockpiling forces behind Ukrainian lines. Some sit there for weeks, with no water, no food, and then either surrender or die.
Никогда не идите на СВО. Вы попадете в жопу.
And yet some do survive, and set ambushes for Ukrainian soldiers. So by morning, the harvest for the Leopard 2 begins again.
В основному по будівлям.
We mostly fire on buildings where drone operators are hiding, infantry, or where weapons and ammo might be stored.
But in dense urban terrain, you can't use artillery or a tank from a closed position. The buildings block the shot. So another Leopard 2 A4 crew pushes into the city to fire the old-fashioned way. Direct fire. In the city, a tank faces just as many enemies. This Leopard 2 A4 is draped with a mesh canopy and ringed with Contact 1 reactive armor. The heavy Leopard stands out against the streets where just yesterday there were shops and apartment blocks. Tense minutes, because from any corner could pop a man with an anti-tank guided missile. And at any moment, a Russian drone with a shaped charge warhead might appear in the sky. And there it is, the panel block building where Russian infantry are holed up. These Soviet-era concrete buildings usually have walls up to 400 millimeters thick, reinforced with steel rods. For most jobs against dug-in infantry and buildings, the go-to round is the DM-11 programmable high explosive shell.
У нас походу гости.
The tank gun becomes a storming squad of its own. Roll up, fire, and the whole floor bursts apart like cardboard. Need to repeat? No problem. The goal is simple: make it easier and safer for the Ukrainian infantry who will come later to finish the clearance. Position destroyed, but the tension doesn't fade. Russian recon already knows there's a Leopard 2 working inside the city. A tank may be fast, but for drones, 20 to 30 kilometers is nothing. Soon the Leo is glowing bright on Russian operators' screens. Hit. Another hit. And again. And again. The fifth drone finally punches through the Leopard's cage armor near the transmission. The engine stalls. The tank halts. On the radio, try starting on emergency. And a miracle. The Leopard roars back to life and crawls away in manual mode. This Leo's got 9 lives just like a cat. Mission complete. The tank makes it back to base under cover. But the war rolls on. In Russian workshops, new cages are welded onto tanks, while Ukrainian Leopards get ready for their next hunt. Show must go on. These barrels, tracks, chunks of armor, transmission blocks, and engine parts could have been turned into roofs for schools and hospitals, or into greenhouses and grain depots. They could have built bridges, ferries, and docks. But for now, they remain here, monuments to a brutal war. These burned-out tanks and APCs hold unique stories, and we're here to uncover them.
We were flying parallel to the border, just 3 to 4 kilometers away. Everything was fine until a missile launched from Russian territory. The plane split in two. What saved me was the armored cockpit capsule.
The Su-25 is tough, like an old soldier, built for war, not parades. But the harsh truth is, Su-25s fly dangerously low, and that makes them easy targets.
There's no such thing as a mission without enemy fire, either from aircraft or from the ground. We're constantly maneuvering. We're always playing tag.
As Su-25 pilots like to joke, if enemy air defenses aren't shooting at you, you're probably doing something wrong. And when you lose this deadly game of tag, the last thing you can do is pull the lever and eject. But even then, your fight's just beginning.
As ground attack pilots, we can't afford to get captured. We know exactly what could happen to us.
That's why a pistol can be the difference between survival and capture.
Ever since I got shot down, I always carry not one, but 2 pistols, 1 Makarov and 1 APS.
But this pilot story proves, getting shot down and landing in enemy territory isn't even the worst thing that can happen in war. So what is? You're about to find out. Let's start with how he survived the initial hit. The Su-25's armored frame does offer real protection, but it's no match for a Russian Panzer S-1 surface-to-air missile. The missile struck. The aircraft went out of control. The Ukrainian pilot pulled the levers and ejected. By that time, he had already served nearly 20 years in tactical aviation, but nothing could prepare him for this. In emergency ejection mode, the parachute opens immediately. So from 5,200 meters, his descent took 1,040 seconds. That's nearly 17 minutes in the air, floating over enemy territory.
They started firing at me from the ground with a DSHK. I saw him. I even saw the Panzer that hit me.
Local villagers witnessed the entire drama with their own eyes. The full-scale invasion hadn't started yet, so they didn't understand what they were seeing. But despite the intense ground fire, the pilot landed uninjured. He quickly ditched his chute and slipped into the nearby woods, moments before a Russian search team reached the crash site.
They were close, several times. I saw them, but they never spotted me.
He spent several days surrounded by the enemy. Only on day 6 was he rescued by a Ukrainian special operations team. The details of that mission will never be revealed, because they'd expose Ukrainian SOF tactics. But what we do know, the rescue was anything but easy. By then, the pilot had just 3 bullets left. That's why he now flies with 2 sidearms, always. You might think this is where the story ends, but it's only the beginning. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion, the pilot was already a colonel and a senior flight inspector. And on day 1 of the war, he wasn't alone. He was with his son, who, on February 24th, flew his first combat mission. Before we tell you what happened next, hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps us reach more people and keeps our team motivated to bring you these untold frontline stories. Thank you. Part 2: Father, Son, and the Su-25. The war began with missile strikes on Ukrainian air bases. The father, our colonel, was home, but his son?
My son ended up in hell, and I could only watch. From the other side of the city, I saw the airbase being bombed. I knew how to evade an airstrike, in theory. My son did it, for real.
It's important to note, no one can force a pilot into the air without the proper clearance for night flights in difficult weather. And the night of February 24th, 2022, it was exactly that. Pitch dark, low visibility, missiles exploding all around, and the runway itself was torn apart. You're now seeing the aftermath of that missile strike. But somehow, they pulled it off. The mission to save the jets succeeded. No one died. Every pilot made it out alive.
That day, my son stopped being just a boy. He stopped being just a serviceman and became a warrior.
From that moment, war became routine. The Su-25 isn't sleek or stealthy. It's not glamorous. It's a flying tank, a legend of ground attack aviation. When it swoops in low and rips across enemy trenches, Ukrainian infantry feels hope. Russian infantry? They feel terror.
The Su-25 showed it's capable of way more than what's written in the manual.
In the early days of the war, when front lines were shifting fast, Su-25s struck trenches, dugouts, bunkers, armored vehicles, and enemy infantry. Beyond close air support, Ukrainian Su-25s also hit fuel convoys, ammo depots, field supply columns, and vehicles on the move. But the father, our colonel, didn't have combat clearance. Why? Because he was training new pilots, getting them ready, and sending them forward while preparing the next group. And let's be honest, training combat aviators is no less important than fighting. That's why command refused to send him into battle. Still, for this man, it wasn't enough.
I had to push through the chain of command just to get deployed. I couldn't accept sitting in the rear while my son was out there fighting.
What would you do in his place? Drop your answer in the comments. Eventually, he got the clearance, and when he did, the father began flying in the same squadron as his son. By then, his son had already been honored. He had destroyed over 20 Russian tanks, more than 50 armored fighting vehicles, 55 transport trucks, 20 fuel tankers, and hundreds of Russian soldiers and officers. That's not a typical father-son story. This isn't LeBron and Bronny. This is war. But even so, they never flew in the same formation. And that makes sense. Because what if one of them gets shot down? How does the other keep going?
I got to fly and fight alongside my son for 11 days. After that, he was gone.
A pilot's family isn't like others. Their kids don't become businessmen or bureaucrats. They become aviators. They learn to say goodbye from a young age. It's not just a choice, it's fate. Still, even with that mindset, losing a pilot is always a tragedy. It leaves a permanent wound in the hearts of those who survive. For a few minutes, they hoped maybe he ejected, maybe he lived. But then came the footage.
This is the video of him being shot down. That's how he died.
The video shows a Ukrainian Su-25 flying dangerously low, just above the treetops. Below him, the enemy. In their hands, a small, deadly man-portable air defense system. It tracks heat. It flies fast, like a bullet, and it's coming for the engine. The pilot never sees where the shot came from. There's no warning, just a split second. Maybe 2, maybe 5. Even if he pulls the handle. Ejecting at such low altitude doesn't guarantee survival. The parachute doesn't have time to open. The pilot hits the ground and doesn't make it. Part 3. A different war. After his son was killed, the father went into mourning, but 40 days later, he returned to duty. Before every flight, he visits his son's grave, asking for a blessing and angelic protection. He believes his son is still with him, watching over him from above. He's still flying. But now, it's a different war, not the one he knew in 2022.
Right now, the war is completely different. It's incredibly tough. Multiple layers of enemy air defense, enemy aircraft. Every mission, it feels like a one-way flight.
The Su-25, while still a symbol of battlefield resilience, has serious limitations, especially in modern high-tech warfare. Most of Ukraine's Su-25 fleet dates back to the 1980s and 1990s. Some even flew in the Soviet war in Afghanistan. Let that sink in. The aircraft lacks its own radar, meaning pilots have zero awareness of nearby enemy fighters. And the standard weapons loadout? Classic Soviet-era ground attack gear, Kh-25 guided missiles, with a range of just 10 kilometers. Unguided rockets, unguided bombs. Most of these munitions are nearly depleted. Even the American-supplied Zuni rockets, while appreciated, were developed in the 1950s, hardly cutting edge. But now, that's changing.
Thanks to our partners, we now have highly accurate weapons. If we need to drop 250 kilograms of explosives into a window, we can. And we do it effectively.
What's he talking about? There is now visual proof that Ukrainian Su-25s have been integrated with French AASM hammer munitions. The hammer isn't a bomb itself, it's a modular guidance kit. You attach it to a standard high explosive bomb, and now you've got a precision-guided weapon. It can hit targets with extreme accuracy, even in poor weather and from standoff range, far outside enemy air defense zones. To launch it, the Su-25 needs to pitch its nose up at the correct angle. So pilots approach the target at low altitude, then pull up and release the bomb during the climb. Thanks to AASM hammer, the work of Ukraine's Su-25 pilots has become more effective and far safer. But even the best weapon is worthless without the will to use it. And the greatest asset in Ukraine's Su-25 fleet is its pilots. Like the man in this story, despite his age, despite the pain, he's still flying, now fighting for 2.
Little boy, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back. I saved you, and you saved me. Thank you.
This video is different from what we usually post. If you liked the format, tell us in the comments. If not, tell us why.
When they started firing directly at us, it was pure panic. My heart dropped. My hands were shaking. My whole body was trembling. We were running back and forth. We had no clear orders. We'd never faced anything like this before. We'd never even seen it, because usually we work from far away.
A Russian drone spotted the Ukrainian TRF-1 howitzer crew, and then hell itself broke loose.
They hit us hard with grad rockets. We were running. We came back to grab our stuff, then pulled back again. For 3 straight hours we were running, and for 3 hours they were pounding us with grads.
The guys barely made it out alive. but they believe God heard their prayers. Today, you'll hear the hard truth about the French-made TRF-1. The gun Russians want gone so badly, they're ready to fire off a whole 40-rocket salvo just to wipe out one position. So what is it really? A powerful weapon worth the risk? Or a bucket of bolts that constantly breaks down? Ukrainian soldiers from the front lines spill the truth. Despite living under constant threat, Ukrainian artillerymen don't abandon their posts. They stay on call because they know the infantry waits for their big caliber backup like kids wait for their own birthday. Look at the daily life of this gunner. What feels like chaos to us is just routine for him.
Бойові готовності 24/7.
We're combat ready 24/7, morning or evening, even if we're sleeping. The radio can give the order to fight at any moment. Then we all sprint out, deploy the gun, get the targeting, and start working.
This crew works like a delivery service, but their customers are airborne assault brigades calling in fire missions. And the recipients of those 155mm packages of high explosive energy are Russian troops.
Right now, we support one of the air assault brigades. We work on call, their drones scout the situation, and if they spot something, they immediately pass the info to the divisional command post.
But before those shells hit their targets, priorities matter. Why not just flatten everything in sight? Because there's never enough ammo. Stockpiles of 155mm rounds aren't bottomless, and a big Russian assault could kick off any moment. And when that happens, no one wants to be left throwing rocks like some medieval catapult crew. So how do they decide which target gets the shot?
The divisional command post decides which battery or platoon takes the mission. They send us the firing data, and then we work the target and adjust fire with the same drone.
And before we continue, hit that like button. Help YouTube's algorithm push this story further. Thanks to modern drones, the balance between the weaker and stronger side can be leveled, and artillery accuracy gets a massive boost. Now, there's always a quadcopter or a fixed-wing UAV circling overhead, correcting fire from the very first to the very last round. How does that change accuracy? Here's the answer straight from the gun position.
We've worked over all types of targets. We operate in pairs with aerial reconnaissance. That way, we avoid situations where we just waste shells shooting randomly.
Now imagine this. Every caliber the Russians have is coming down on you, and your hands are itching to fire back. But your ammo crates are nearly empty, like a KFC bucket after watching a soccer match with the boys. Can't picture it? No worries. This soldier explains it firsthand.
There will never be enough shells. You always want to shoot more, work more. Even during the day, sometimes we fire 50 to 60 rounds, sometimes up to 100.
Because of this ammo hunger, Ukrainian artillery can't afford to waste shells on long adjusting barrages like armies did in past wars. Drones solve the problem. They guide every strike. Has this really cut down on ammo waste?
Since we have such a limited supply, we save every round. We aim for precision. The drone adjusts us. Usually by the second or third shot, we're already hitting the target. This howitzer is really great when it comes to accuracy.
So Russians shouldn't smirk about shortages. When Ukrainians lock onto a target, the battlefield explodes like a storm. These guys fire as if they're stokers on the battleship Britannia during World War I, shoveling coal until the boilers scream.
Maybe a minute to get the gun on target and fire the first shot. After that, we can fire every 10 seconds.
The results? Let's hear it from a soldier who hammers the enemy every time another Russian assault rolls in.
If we spot a tank, we hit the tank. If it's waves of infantry, like the Russians have been doing lately, then we work over the infantry hard and stop their advance.
Two slow Russian movements. The TRF-1 has its own built-in kill zone. And within that radius, even a small Russian squad won't leave without souvenirs from France.
Its max range is 24 kilometers with a full charge, or 28 kilometers using rocket-assisted shells.
But don't be fooled. Russians can hit back. And hard. Multiple launch rocket systems aren't the only threat stalking Ukrainian gunners. Almost constantly, they're monitoring danger from the skies. At any moment, a Russian Lancet kamikaze drone can lock onto them. And when one of those hits a gun position, it's like a dragon exhaling fire. Everything around is engulfed in flames, and shrapnel slices through anything in its path.
The order came to take cover. Most likely Lancets were launched, or maybe an air raid, maybe even aviation. Quick, move. This is serious. Everyone to cover. Lancets overhead. Lancets.
It might sound like a dead end, but not for Ukrainian soldiers. How did they solve this problem? Rule number 1. Dig. Rule number 2. If you've already dug deep, Follow the third rule. Dig even deeper. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more brutal stories from the front lines.
Це обрати таку позицію для
We try to pick a position or a dugout not too far from the gun so that within a minute and a half, we can get from cover to the piece.
But that's not all. Right next to the gun, 24/7, guys with heavy calibers stand guard, ready to turn any lancet into confetti.
Вогонь зразу навіть без попередження.
If we spot drones, we open fire right away. No warning. Everyone already knows why.
Of course, Russians won't just fold. Even if they lose hundreds of drones, their deck is stacked with more than just lancets. They know infantry is holding the line in front of Ukrainian guns. So to crack through that defense and get closer to artillery, they send up Orlan drones for correction. And once an Orlan sees you, you can bet something heavy is coming next.
Що коригують артилерію десь.
Usually it's lancets flying here. Or Orlans, or both. Orlans correct artillery fire on the infantry holding a little ahead of us. They adjust strikes on them sometimes.
If drones are a nightmare to deal with, Ukrainian artillery has no problem shredding BMPs, tanks, or Russian bike swarms. When Putin's wolves charge in on motorcycles, there's already a surprise waiting for them. This guy and his gun are like guardian angels, invisible until the thunder hits. And then every infantryman breathes easier.
і гідравлічну систему. Таким чином
As we say, the sweat of the artillery saves the blood of the infantry. We think about our boys on the front line. For them, it's much harder, scarier. They need our help badly.
With stakes this high, the last thing anyone in the army wants is for the howitzer itself to break down. And here's where TRF-1 shows its cracks. After some time in Ukrainian service, crews have collected quite a list of complaints. Which ones? Let's go step by step.
Дуже складна в тому плані.
It's very, very complicated because there's so much electronics, so many sensors on it. You really have to keep an eye on everything. A lot of things break down and you need to repair or replace parts in time.
Think that's all? Hate to disappoint. The barrel and systems of the TRF-1 are like Uncle John's old pickup truck. Looks fine, but constantly needs fixing.
Якщо радянські системи
One of
можна
the
було
downsides, it breaks often. With Soviet systems, you could just bash something with a hammer, straighten it, and keep working. But here, if a hydraulic hose cracks, it's game over. The gun just won't work.
We didn't just compare TRF-1 to a pickup truck for fun. It actually has an engine and can move on its own.
ця гармата має свій двигун внутрішнього
This gun has an internal combustion engine and a hydraulic system. That way, you can start it up, and it'll move by itself at a speed of about 5 to 7 kilometers per hour around the position.
Can you already hear that little engine roaring? Looks impressive, right up until it stalls and bolts start rattling loose.
фланги можуть тріснути, і воно вже не працює.
The engine vibrates while it's running. Plus, the recoil from firing shakes everything too. And sooner or later, something starts unscrewing.
Bet you anything, after the war, the crew of this gun will be the most wanted mechanics in auto shops. Great resume experience, because fixing TRF-1 meant doing it out in the open field.
Практично все ми можемо усувати.
We can repair almost everything right in the field. Maybe not absolutely everything, but as our commander says, people endure, iron doesn't.
Engine problems look like a fat minus for sure. Nobody likes wasting precious time turning wrenches. But once the repair is done, and you see the gratitude in your brother's eyes, you realize it's worth it. This artilleryman rolls up to a position like he's parking in a lot.
В вузьких місцях розгорнути її.
It's really convenient if you need to quickly turn it around in tight places, much faster than other 155mm howitzers of roughly the same size.
But how do you actually bring this beast to the sector? You need a superhero to tow it into place. Superman was busy, so the job went to an old army tractor.
Класичної гаубиці.
It's an interesting design. It's a transitional stage from the classic towed howitzer, where a tractor brings it in, drops it off, it fires, and then the tractor picks it up again.
Mastering artillery isn't about talent, it's about sweat and hard work. Ukrainians trained abroad, but only became real pros when they faced war head-on and learned by doing under fire.
Доволі швидко все получалось. В принципі,
It all clicked pretty fast. By the second day of training, I already understood the basics, how it works, how to operate it. Just practice, and it all comes together.
And here's the irony. This speed of learning is actually a downside. Western instructors had months to get comfortable with TRF-1. Ukrainians? They had to sweat it out because every extra hour at the training range meant lost time and lost ground on the front.
швидше, ніж навчаються.
The European instructors who trained us told us we learn way faster than their guys, probably because they've got time. We didn't. We had to learn fast so we could get back to defending our country.
Some guys even came back from abroad to help buy time for training reserves and to reinforce their brothers already fighting in artillery crews. But what would you do? Would you stay in the rear and help from there? Or would you head straight to the front? This guy made his choice. And while he tells his story, you can share your thoughts in the comments.
I was living in the United States of America, but the feeling of dignity, the need to protect my family, and the sense of injustice made me return to Ukraine and join the armed forces.
On the Ukrainian front, the TRF-1 has shown itself as a fierce but demanding beast. Compared to the old Soviet guns Ukrainian troops had been fighting with, it's like a breath of fresh air. But this comfort comes at a cost. Hours of maintenance. And now it's your turn. Which Western howitzer do you think is better, TRF-1, M777, or FH-70? Drop your thoughts under this video. We've already seen the Polish SPG Crab. We've worked with the Soviet SPG Akatsiya. And today we came to the big German machine, the Panzer Haubitze 2000. Now we'll go inside, see what's in there, how it looks, how everything works. Let's go.
The gun is called the PZH-2000, German. You sit in the gunner's seat, the commander's seat. This is the loader's spot, first loader. Second loader here. There's also a driver's spot. We enter meteorological data. First and foremost, we enter met data constantly, every 2 hours.
You enter those weather condition values, and then the gun automatically...
Yes, it calculates itself. Even if I enter the data, it will take previous values and calculate an average. It does everything by itself.
Speaking of weather, what were the toughest conditions you've had to operate in?
We've operated in rain and in snow. It's not like the SPG Pion, where if it starts raining you can't work because it's that sensitive. Rain, snow, basically, in any weather.
Support the channel with a like and subscribe. Now we're going to the ammunition storage area, specifically this installation stowage. As the crew of this vehicle says, everything here is set up so modern. Everything's on automatic. The gun itself knows. The vehicle itself knows which round should be where, why it should be there, how best to feed it so the crew can work easier. Let's go see how it's all arranged.
Were those impacts just now?
Yes, that's constant. Happens often.
And what's this little seat?
We'll show you if needed. This here is the gun's boss. Drive these little clamps in here, drive them in.
And what do you hold on to?
This ring here. Look, you can also tug this handle to make aiming more comfortable. Roll the round in. A bit more. Now turn this handle that way. Turn until it stops.
That's locking it.
More. More until it's fully home.
There we go.
Back out. Be bolder, be bolder. Now use your feet to swing it toward me. Lift it up a bit, then turn the handle back the other way. Don't crank it too hard now. I take the round, feed it back here.
The gun brings death to the enemy. Inside it's full of everything. The Germans really did a bang-up job. And our Ukrainian crew learned to run this beast superbly. Just look at it. Isn't this a marvel? It'd be great if our Western partners sent us even more gear like this. Then we'd push the occupier off Ukrainian land even faster.
Pull it toward you and down. Yeah, like that, so it fires up? I may be a driver, but I drive combat vehicles. That matters to me.
I can see you've got a huge control panel. Lots of toggles, buttons, and a screen. What's that for?
I've got status buttons for specific systems here. Battery status button. See, I'll show you now. We actually need to start it up. The battery's basically dead. Then there's the ABC system status button. The ABC system. That's the air filtration system. When we're operating, we close all the hatches. We switch that system on. The gun draws air through the filters, so we get clean air. At the same time, it pressurizes the vehicle. And while it's running, all the smoke gets pushed out. It forces it out. If you don't switch it on, then it's just... you simply won't have anything to breathe.
We're moving out to the firing line. We'll be operating now.
How's the comms? Working? Yes, yes.
All preparations are finished now.
Ready to take the position.
We start the vehicle. We're moving out.
Careful, beginning to move.
The feeling is unreal, honestly. When you see this machine in action, words don't do it justice. You have to see it. The automation's working now. It checks the coordinates by itself. It knows where to swing the turret to point the gun. It's quite a team effort. The commander calculates the coordinates, the loader. Now he's feeding the propellant for the shot. Here on the floor are our little dolls. We're about to launch them.
Wait.
Ready? Ready? Prepared.
Fire.
First round away. We got clearance for a second round.
Ready. Ready, prepared.
Fire.
Second one's away. We fired 5 rounds. We just received new coordinates. The commander's doing the math and inputting them into the system. The gun has already acquired the target. We're getting ready to fire the next 5 rounds.
If you can't afford a gym membership, welcome to the armed forces.
You'll get a workout? Fire. As soon as you hear it, or as soon as it's a restriction, if it goes, you hear it, and you turn that way. I immediately pass on that it went to restriction, toward your side.
From the Donetsk direction, Tetyana Bernatska, Danilo Panashuk, for Ukraine's military television.
Here sits the assistant gunner. Here's where it starts. And this is his lever. He drives forward, turns right or left. The rear wheels steer. What speed does it reach? 16 kilometers per hour.
Sounds more like a farmer's tractor than a fearsome weapon of war, doesn't it? But don't write it off just yet, because if it were truly a joke, Russian Lancet drones wouldn't be hunting it so aggressively.
This Lancet came to visit us. A loitering munition. Unsuccessful. It was flying and our guys shot it down. If it hits the target, it'll cause damage. Serious damage to the gun.
So today we'll ask, is the FH-70 a weapon worth fearing? Or just old junk in a modern war? Ukrainian artillerymen will tell the truth. Can you guess how many countries had to work together to bring this gun to life? Here's the answer.
This is the FH-70, a 155mm howitzer. It was built in the 1970s. Since 1978, it's been in service with NATO countries. It was jointly developed by 3 nations, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy.
Almost 60 years later, the FH-70 is back in action. But can it survive in today's battlefield, where Russian Lancet drones circle overhead like Japanese kamikaze pilots hunting for prey?
One was shot down above our positions. This is part of that Lancet. You can see the rear section, actually the engine area. It was shot down here, and there are plenty of these birds out there.
In World War II, kamikazes were met by American anti-aircraft gunners with heavy calibers. In Ukraine today, Russian Lancets are hunted by soldiers with shotguns. But what happens when the FH-70 has to face down 152mm counter battery fire? Will Ukrainian crews hold their ground like Oleksandr Usyk in the ring, standing strong against an opponent with a heavy hook? But first, hit that like button. It helps YouTube push this story to more people around the world. This crew was lucky. They survived and kept their gun in working condition. Others weren't so fortunate. They found themselves in a brutal counter battery duel with Russian artillery, and their howitzer took a hit that knocked it out of action.
They damaged our gun, missed with the first round, but the second one got us. They hit the side, damaged it, but didn't destroy it.
Luckily, damaged equipment can be repaired and sent back into action. But here's the catch. The time it takes to fix it is critical. The fewer guns on the line, the harder it is for infantry in the trenches to hold out. Ukrainian soldiers grit their teeth and play the long game. But can the FH-70 keep up with that tempo?
It's not designed for this pace of war. The equipment wears down a lot. Yes, we've had to change barrels. They were extremely worn out. Other parts get repaired.
Unlike the Russians, Ukrainians can't afford to burn through their artillery. They don't have massive warehouse stockpiles. For example, Ukraine has only around 40 FH-70s, guarded like diamonds. To minimize losses, crews dig in, very deep. These dug-in artillery pits shield the howitzers from shrapnel and drone strikes.
Ми зараз перейшли от в Копаніри.
Now we've switched to Caponiers and are standing in a standard position. It's good, safe, because if a sudden shelling comes in, you can lower the table and have somewhere to hide.
But Russian shells and drones aren't the only threat. Bad weather, mud, and dust are constant enemies too. What do soldiers do? Like true gentlemen, they cover their lady with a raincoat.
Я також ліво-вправо.
The seat rotates and moves. It has a lift mechanism up and down, left and right. And when we start work, we remove a cover that protects it from rain.
And we noticed another clever trick: how Ukrainians protect the gun's most valuable piece of equipment.
Так, бо це, в принципі, найважливіше, що є на цьому.
We remove the armor that protects the panorama. That's the most important part of all this, because if something else goes wrong, it can be repaired or patched up. But if the panorama is hit, you'll have to find another one and fix it. And that's much harder.
In Ukraine, the FH-70 doesn't sit around in depots or training grounds, sipping oil like Aperol. It stings hard on the battlefield, like a wasp. As soon as partners delivered this weapon, it was sent straight to the front, where new targets appear almost every hour.
Любого виду і сил.
It's designed to hit any type of enemy forces. It's got a very broad spectrum. You can hit infantry, mortar nests, basically, both personnel and equipment.
The FH-70 has had to go head-to-head with Russian artillery, which outnumbered it and posed a constant threat. But even under those odds, Ukrainian crews didn't sit idle. They fought back. They joined counter-battery duels where the odds were stacked against them from the start. Did they manage to play it 1-to-1? Or land the decisive shot like the winning touchdown in the final seconds of the Super Bowl? Let the commander answer.
We had just one gun, but it fired with incredible accuracy. We could destroy a target with a single shot from the first round. That's very hard to do. My gunner Roman, he's that good.
And that accuracy had consequences. The Russians started taking irreversible losses. Did it level the playing field on that part of the front?
Before the offensive in Kursk, there was much more Russian artillery here. Now it's a lot less, or they're using it less. But before the offensive, there was much more, and we destroyed a lot of their artillery.
Once Ukrainians switched from maneuver defense to the offensive, the picture changed completely. The number of shells flying at Russians skyrocketed, thousands every month. Imagine how hot those barrels were after that kind of tempo. At that heat, artillerymen probably could have boiled water for coffee.
In 2 months, the battery fired almost 3,000 shells. There was a lot of work. We destroyed many targets. We hit columns, concentrations of vehicles, concentrations of manpower.
When the front line stabilized, the Russians didn't abandon their attempts to push forward. For this artillery crew, that meant endless assaults they had to break with fire. The result? Let's just say, the Russians weren't fans.
From early morning, the assaults begin, and we and our brothers, the artillerymen and the rocket guys, we work non-stop. We fire fragmentation rounds, we fire different shells. The assault groups are destroyed.
Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the brutal realities of modern war. The Ukrainians managed to stockpile enough ammunition to strike back hard. One day, they hit a dugout where Russian ammunition was stored. The blast was so massive that, for a moment, Russian infantry thought they were in Hiroshima, not Eastern Europe.
It started smoking slowly. They waited, and then the ammo depot exploded, and a Russian on comms said, "Это был ядерный гриб." That was a nuclear mushroom.
But believe it or not, that wasn't the most spectacular strike from the FH-70. One Ukrainian gunner managed to land a 155mm round on a very fat target, a Russian Buk air defense system, the kind that protects the skies over occupied territory. Its value? Tens of millions of dollars. To grasp that scale, imagine it all in cash, enough to fill a New York studio apartment floor to ceiling.
Recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I hit a Buk. If it's, say, a mortar platoon or tanks, that's usually 15 to 16 kilometers. But if it's a Buk, then it's 25 to 26 kilometers. It hides. It won't sit on the front line waiting for us.
That kind of precision is possible thanks to the crew's surgical accuracy. First, they fire a spotting round. Then the second lands right on target. Hell yeah, that's what darts looks like for grown men.
The accuracy is such that the first shell falls about 50 to 60 meters from the target. With that kind of precision, you can hit the target with the second round. The Russians really don't like that.
But no matter how skilled these gunners are, they're still human, not machines. The constant tempo burns out nerves fast. Some men stay in sector for half a year without rotation or leave. So what keeps their spirit alive? Because in this kind of war, strong morale is half the battle. Of course, it feels good when they tell the gunners they destroyed a Russian mortar team, a drone operator, or an artillery piece. But deep down, what they really want is simple: for it all to end.
Yes, of course it's nice when they say we destroyed drone operators, or a mortar, or their artillery. But honestly, we just want it all to be over.
Despite the exhaustion, Ukrainian artillerymen continue to impress with their effectiveness. And they've got one big advantage over the Russians. Want to know what it is? Listen carefully.
By the time Russians send info to their HQ that they're under fire, process it and give firing orders back. We've already hit them and moved out.
That lack of bureaucracy speeds up their kill chain dramatically. Want more details? Grab some popcorn, because you're about to get a step-by-step guide to artillery life. First, the howitzer quickly drives itself into position.
We detach it from the towing vehicle, find a gap, drive it in. That's it. We don't have to cut down half the tree line. The crew doesn't have to overstrain, most of it's hydraulic. We deploy quickly.
Next, the crew gets the firing coordinates and aligns the gun.
They bring it here. We set up our regular Soviet busol, aiming instrument. Then I use the black scales to orient the gun. After that, I switch to the red scales, pick a reference point in the main direction, and that's how I do the aiming.
For Ukrainians who trained on Soviet artillery, the FH-70 feels familiar.
Most panoramas also have busels, so nothing new. If you take someone from another Soviet system, sit him here and show him. 15 minutes later, he's almost fully ready to work.
Loading is also straightforward. Once prepared in the rear, the process becomes muscle memory.
Loading is very simple. You put the shell on the tray rises, the rammer pushes it in, then you insert the propellant charge. A special magazine with pyrotechnic cartridges is loaded. The cartridge is automatically rammed, and the shot is fired.
Finally comes the best part: the shot. It can be fired in two ways.
On the side, when there's a smaller charge, we can do it at a safe distance. But usually, we pull this cord that stretches far back, you step away to a safe spot, yank the cord, and the shot goes off.
While filming, we caught a sweet moment. One gunner loves his howitzer so much, he named it after his girlfriend. But the real question is, who gets more jealous?
Usually a gun is named after the gunner's girl. What's yours called? Karina. And what's Karina's character? Tough.
In the end, the crew is satisfied with their Western howitzer. They've proven that even older weapons can still be lethal in modern war. And above all, they're grateful for NATO military aid.
She may be old, but she's reliable. Practically no malfunctions. With proper care, she works great and shoots accurately. Partner support works well. I'd say she's a reliable friend, always there to save the infantry in time.
So, what do you think? What's the FH-70's greatest advantage? Its 155mm caliber? Its ability to self-propel into position? Or its simplicity of use and maintenance? Drop your take in the comments. Oh my god, this driver deserves the lead role in a new Fast and Furious, Drift in Donbass. The Canadian Senator took a direct FPV hit and still clawed its way out of hell on just 3 wheels. Even Russian drone operators didn't expect that twist. But is the armor of this steel beast really that tough? One soldier has doubts.
Here you can see a fragment got under the armor, punched through 2 radiators, and only the third stopped it. The shard got stuck. In my opinion, I don't get why these ribs face downward. Mostly shrapnel comes in like this, and everything flies straight through.
Today you'll hear the truth about whether the Canadian giant has more strengths or weak spots. Soldiers and special forces who personally upgraded it spill everything. And stay with us, because at the end we've got a surprise. A wild story of Senator meeting a Russian self-propelled gun. As Dominic Toretto would say, "Looks right!" That drift you saw at the start wasn't some flashy road stunt. It was survival. To escape a sector exploding like the latest Battlefield release, the designers built in an automatic wheel lock system. How does it work? The crew explains.
This switch is for automatic locking. It either stays locked, or if one wheel starts slipping, the lock kicks in. Or you can switch it on manually yourself.
This angry steel bull weighs almost 9 tons. To charge into the battlefield's flames, it needs a reliable suspension system. Did it hold up?
Немає. Ми можемо звернути увагу.
We've used it for almost a year now, under extreme conditions. No complaints about the suspension. Strong springs up front, leaf springs in the rear. Very solid. The front end rides softer, the rear is stiffer.
But the wheels are the Achilles heel. With cratered roads and constant shrapnel, crews risk losing mobility in seconds.
Єдине, що ми за це все время, так сказати...
The only thing we've had to fix this whole time was the tires. The environment is brutal. Debris, busted roads, tires keep getting punctured.
Before we continue, please like this video. Help the algorithm see our channel. Spare wheels are a must. But what if you can't even stop because Russian drones will swarm you like piranhas? The answer is in the tires themselves.
Як правильно називаються вони, докатки.
This vehicle has run flats. Even if you puncture a wheel, you can still drive out of the combat zone to a safe spot and repair later.
Sounds good, but here comes the letdown. Its American cousin, the Max Pro, has night vision and an automatic tire inflation system, both lifesavers for Ukrainian troops. Can Rochelle Senator boast the same?
На жаль, немає тут прилада ночного бачення.
No, unfortunately, there's no night vision here, and no tire inflation system, which we really need.
Instead, it relies on strong headlights, but driving with lights on the front lines is like stepping straight into a dinosaur's jaws. You're practically begging to get crushed.
LED-фари з лінзами, також дальній і ближній.
These are LED headlights with lenses, both high and low beams. But honestly, we don't use them at all. At night, we almost never turn them on.
So these fancy lights are only useful deep in the rear, where no Lancet or FPV will ever reach. You're probably wondering, how do the guys even move this beast in the dark? Surely they must end up driving into the wrong places all the time? Here's the answer straight from the front.
От у нас є лебедка спереді.
Well, we've got a winch on the front. You can see the conditions we've driven through, and we never once needed it. Crawling, swimming, rolling, never used it.
A winch is a small but pleasant bonus, especially when you never actually have to touch it. Two other details stand out about this machine's doors. First, they're heavy, like gates from a medieval castle. How not to crush yourself with them?
Да, упор є, то що двері дуже тяжкі.
Yes, there's a stop, because the doors are very heavy, so the wind won't slam them shut and injure your arms or legs. The door mounts hold them.
And since we're talking castles, what's the one thing you'd expect inside a fortress under siege? We'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The right answer is firing ports.
На даний погляд, ми їх ніколи не використовували. Вони є...
Well, we've never actually used them. They're not practical for combat. At least not in our terrain.
Yeah, you heard that right. Firing ports. Their usefulness is debatable, but one thing's for sure. This Rochelle Senator, like a knight's warhorse, can cover long distances, and feeding such a beast takes serious reserves. Here's where the fuel sits.
Це у нас є 2 баки.
І скільки вона може на повній заправці?
These are 2 tanks.
How far on a full load?
Depends on conditions, of course. When fully fueled, the computer shows 700 to 800 kilometers.
Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new impressive videos about weapons and modern warfare. On the front lines, where roads are more like swamp trails, the Senator turns into a real glutton. It gulps fuel like bottomless soda at a diner.
Літрів 28, 25-28, а найбільший там і 50.
The lowest consumption we've seen was around 25 to 28 liters per 100 kilometers. But at times it hit 50 to 60 liters. On one of the Donetsk sectors, it was mud everywhere. Even BTRs and BMPs got stuck. We were literally driving over bridges. That's when the fuel burn went through the roof.
The hardest time for soldiers is winter, when fuel can freeze solid in the brutal cold. Imagine needing to head out on a combat mission, but the vehicle won't budge because the diesel has turned to ice. Does the Canadian armored beast really choke in winter? Let's check.
Морози, то есть, якість солярки взимку, ви знаєте, вона замерзає.
In winter, we had freezes. You know what winter diesel is like? It tends to freeze. But this vehicle, any time of year, you just walk up, start it, and drive. No complaints about the fuel system.
And now, the star of the show, the heart of the Rochelle Senator, pumping fuel so this beast can charge through insane distances. Can you guess what it is?
Літрів. 8.
It's a Ford F550 engine, 6.7 liters. If I'm not mistaken, around 450 horsepower. I'll say this, there wasn't a single moment when it failed to pull us through.
But this engine's got a personality of its own. It's like a wild animal. Tame it first, then it becomes your best friend. Will Ukrainians find the key to its heart?
9-ступінчатий автомат у компанії ZF.
9-speed automatic gearbox from ZF. Very reliable, full drive, but very specific to handle. Let's say she's got character. She won't just bow to any driver. You've got to come to terms with her.
This next part will please all the Pimp My Ride fans. Because before the Senator rolled into battle, Ukrainians had to rework it into a mobile command post. Did it pay off?
It's hooked up with Starlink for internet. Radios are installed, plus IP telephony. Everyone's got a screen. 4 people can work inside at once, each with their own station. Even at night, there's light for the crew. But with blackout mode on, from outside, nothing is visible.
But the biggest effort came from the medics, who turned the Rochelle Senator into a medevac for special forces. Believe me, the sweat and hours were worth it. If there were an award for best battlefield upgrade, these guys would take the Grand Prix hands down.
Everything here, the Starlink, charging stations, medical compartment, all of it, we did with our own hands. We thought it through together, figured it out, and built it ourselves.
Drivers weren't as lucky. Their space stayed nearly unchanged. Here's what the cab looks like inside.
Камера заднього виду, є клімат-контроль, то есть всі, так сказать, переваги.
Rear view camera installed, climate control. All the advantages of this vehicle are here. It's armored, always heated, extra charging points. Here's where we turn off sound signals. Here's where we shut down the lighting completely. The spotlight up top, controlled right here with your right hand.
Compared to other NATO armored giants, it's minimalist, but still functional. Real triumph of simplicity. The only thing drivers never lack is danger. On one sortie, shrapnel hit straight into the windshield. Here's how it went down.
Також прилетіло в лобове скло і сюди, і витримало.
Fragments slammed into the windshield here and here, and it held. Took the impact. The vehicle survived, the crew survived.
How far was the blast?
About 5 meters.
Sharp-eyed viewers will remember we promised a story about the Rochelle Senator's duel with a Russian SPG. Well, here it is. This was like a second birthday for Ukrainian special forces. Why? Let one of the men explain.
The enemy SPG wouldn't let anything bigger than a meter get close. Another group couldn't move in, and our group couldn't get out.
The guys took the risk and decided to break through. They knew the area was zeroed in, and the odds of survival were 50-50.
And that damned SPG fired. The first thing I heard when I came to my senses was the hiss of my front left tire going flat.
Now imagine being stuck on a road that's already been bracketed. It's like trying to shield yourself from a storm of shrapnel with an umbrella. In a moment like that, survival feels possible only if some higher power takes your side.
The blast wave threw us off the road. The steering wheel spun, and we ended up in the ditch. It was one of those moments where every second feels like you could slice time with a knife. You're sitting there immobile, and all it takes is one reload, and the next shot could hit dead on.
Had it been a direct hit, it would have been the crew's last day. But the shells exploded nearby. The armor held, and the men managed to steer out. You can hear the relief in this soldier's voice.
That was probably my second, maybe third birthday. This machine saved me, saved the crew, saved the wounded we were carrying. It took the hit for us.
The Rochelle Senator isn't perfect, but it's one of the most common Western armored vehicles in Ukraine's army. And these machines have been lifesavers for infantry units since the moment they arrived on the front lines. Soldiers are genuinely grateful to the vehicle and to the partners who delivered them.
Якби не він, нам би було тяжко. Дуже тяжко. Іменно що.
If it weren't for this thing, it would have been really hard, brutally hard. But once we started using it in the fall, when the rains came, it kept pulling us out again and again. We used it in 2 or 3 directions, and it saved us so many times.
Would you like to see us compare the Rochelle Senator to its Western cousins, or its Russian rivals in one of our next videos? Maybe Italy's Iveco LMV, Turkey's Kirpi, or even Russia's Tiger? Drop your choice in the comments, or suggest your own.